jurisdiction level. That is the reason why AYV, Independent Review Network, they are able to get their record to say we did not do it. Now there is an order. I mean, we are not going to go into that, but the bottom line is the matter is still in court. The NEC has put the Supreme Court as far as we are concerned. We have been adhering to the Public Elections Act, not to the judges' orders, as you may want to put it.
So therefore, is it that NEC does not agree with the High Court?
From day one, NEC made it clear that the High Court judge does not have the jurisdiction. From day one, we have established that. So that one is as simple as it is.
All right.
And so perhaps if you bear with me, I would just seek to add a word or two to that, so that people would understand better. We recall when there was the case of Sam Sumana, and it proceeded to the ECOWAS court. We know that government, through the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, had said that they don't recognize the ECOWAS court. As far as they're concerned, they're challenging the jurisdiction of the ECOWAS court to hear and determine the issue that Sam Sumana took to them. And so that was their position. So essentially what Albert is saying, legally, when you object to the jurisdiction of a court, all you have to do is to wait and see if the same court would agree with you or discountenance your objection. If the court discountenances your objection and proceeds to hear and determine the matter, then you can have an appellate recourse, which is what NEC has done. It would have been foolhardy on the part of counsel for NEC to say we are objecting to this jurisdiction and at the same time go there again to argue the application. Because had they gone there to argue, canvass any argument or file any further papers, it would have amounted to what we call a waiver of the objection. It is like I have an issue with Ms. Bangura and Ms. Howard is coming to be the adjudicator. And then I say, no, I will not allow her. I don't recognize her to hear and determine the dispute between me and Ms. Bangura. But if on the sidelines I go again to Ms. Howard and say, okay, let me give you my own version of the events. In other words, it amounts to a waiver of my objection. So if I am objecting to your jurisdiction, I have to object and stick to it, which is what NEC has done. So it's now left with the Supreme Court to uphold the position by NEC or otherwise advise.
All right. Now, if the High Court, the High Court didn't go through, like you said, the application was not moved, and of course, Ibrahim Sori, the court was probably not technically in agreement with Ibrahim Sori, given that it did not instruct NEC to do a recount and the other, requirements put for. I'm trying to find the legal words. I'm sorry.
and you'll find them in the course of time. Sooner or later, you find them.
So, but somehow went forward and put an injunction, which of course you put to the Sierra Leone Sierra Leone public to try and figure out what informed the judge's decision to go ahead with that. Now, NEC is also in the Supreme Court. Now, if the court rules in NEC's favor, where does that leave the High Court and the decision of the judge to put that injunction? Where does that put both the court and the judge?
Well, if the Supreme Court is in agreement with counsel for NEC, then it means that the orders that, it means that the Supreme Court is saying Justice Mansare, with all due respect, ought not to have proceeded to determine the matter in the manner in which it disposed of the matter. And so it means that those orders will be discountenanced. At this point, I will not say, for example, NEC should discountenance. I have my view on the orders given by Justice Mansare, but I would not say what the effect or otherwise would be and what my advice to NEC would be relating to those orders. Because as I said, since the matter is before the Supreme Court, and today's Tuesday,
yes.
So it means the matter comes up tomorrow. Let's just bear with the Supreme Court. I'm sure the Supreme Court will do justice tomorrow.
All right. So, Albert, now as the case comes up tomorrow, and NEC is still not in agreement with the High Court. Now, if the Supreme Court does rule in favor of the High Court, will there be time enough for NEC to institute all those requirements or orders being put forward by High Court in time for Saturday?
In the first place, your question is hypothetical, and let's wait for the Supreme Court's decision. But what we're doing now is to do our logistical arrangements, our preparation, to ensure that the people of Sierra Leone, we give them the service that they deserve and they desire, that is for us to conduct the election. We are not much going to be bothered because we know we have a very strong case. And the Supreme Court will justify that. Let's wait for the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, we have resumed our operational activities. Vehicles are going to be fueled, ballot boxes, everything is going to go out in the field. We'll ensure there's even one cadre of staff that we did not train. That is the last cadre of staff. These are the queue controllers, and we'll ensure we train them, then we go ahead with our, we are pretty sure, especially when what the commission did was to go to the Supreme Court so that we are able to get a date. So we are now focused. The legal matters will be handled legally, but for operational, NEC we're on course to ensure that we are able to conduct the elections come at the 1st March 2018.
All right, now, finally, before we let you go and we close the show, I'm sure Sierra Leoneans are now wondering, with all these things happening, all these controversies around the runoff elections, are there any changes in procedures of where to vote or how to vote, or when, just the entire electoral process, or do we go in as we went in on March 7th?
Well, there are slight changes. One, the number of elections that we will be voting. It is one all over the country, but we have some exceptions, like constituency 1, 2, 3, somewhere in Freetown. We're going to have a deferred elections because for technical reason. The entire Bonth municipality would have 2 elections, the runoff election and the mayoral election. Then also in Bo Ward 278, that election was deferred, countermanded and deferred as a result of the death of the APC candidate. Again, in Pujong Ward 353 and also in Kenema Ward 055 for technical reasons. So in these areas, we'll be having 2 elections, the presidential runoff plus the deferred election. That is one. Then coming to procedures, in the first elections, we inked the index finger, that is the pointing finger. But for this election, it's going to be the last finger. That is also another change in the procedures. Not this one, because some people will still have the ink. It will be the last finger. That is also another. Then we'll not be having 4 elections, as I stated. So we'll not be having like ballot paper issuer 2, ballot box controller 2. Out of, we used to have 7 staff. Now you will see a lesser number from 7 to 5, which is very, very much key. We employed about 84,000 staff the last election, the first election. Now we'll be employing about 62,000. So even the personnel, there's going to be a reduction in the personnel. But all other activities, basically, we still apply the rules as established in the Public Elections Act.
Now, now that you've spoken about the staff personnel and those who have been hired, how will NEC be handling its staff, given that it's been out on the media that NEC sacked some of its staff for misconduct? So a fair number of Sierra Leoneans are a bit worried that moving forward, what should we expect in terms of the staff?
In the first place, we don't sack our staff. They worked. These are ad hoc staff, temporary staff for 3 days, 5 days. They have completed their activities. We may not renew their contracts because this is a new ball game. So we have not sacked. If you are permanent staff, probably for a longer period, then we'll sack you because you are not going to continue. But they have completed their task. Under normal circumstances, just as I mentioned earlier, we recruited 84,000. Even if you did well, we are just going to reduce from 84,000 to 62,000. Only that we will not recall all of the staff. Even if all 7 staff in a particular station did very well, It simply means we are not going to recall the ballot paper issue at 2 or the ballot box control at 2.
No, what I'm saying, what we are saying, relieved and blacklisted, or whether temporary.
Well, that's the word I was coming to.
Okay.
We will blacklist. We have not sacked staff because their employment was for 2 days, 3 days, which they had completed. We will blacklist, meaning you will not work for us again, depending on performance level. But even if you worked well, we are just saying we employed 84,000. Now we are reducing it to 62. So even if you worked well, if you are not recalled, that does not mean you are blacklisted. But of course, we will look into all of such. And it is not only, as people are trying to portray, only in Kenema or in Kailam. The commission is going to blacklist in all of the districts because we did a recount in all of the districts. The commission will compile and that will be made known to the public.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much for joining us this